Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is really a video to just say that there probably aren't going to be any videos for a few days. It's early Friday morning at the moment, so what I am going to look at today will probably be out of focus, but we'll do what we can. But tomorrow I'll be off to pick my daughter up quite early in the day, and then we've got a gardening weekend. It's a bank holiday Monday, so it's a long weekend. Hannah will be going back on Monday sometime, sort of later in the afternoon. And it's being a gardening weekend, we've got a lot to do. So most of this weekend is going to be outside. A massive tidy up in the garden and trying to dispose of all the rubbish and everything. I've even managed to scrounge or borrow next door's green bin. This is a service you have to pay for in our area, where you can put green waste, you know, your cuttings and your grass stuff and your prunings and all that sort of stuff, your weeds and stuff like that. They just go in a separate bin, and they collect it once a fortnight. Unfortunately, my bin is nearly full because I had a good go at the front garden yesterday. Quite a bit of pruning and stuff to do out there. And then I've got the boring job of actually painting the front of the house, which I'm really not looking forward to. It's not my favourite chore, but needs to be done. The front of the house has got really tatty over the years, so just sort of freshen it up a bit. Yeah, busy weekend. Not much will be going on out here, quite honestly. The mounts will get the sprayer at the moment. I haven't got the time to water them as I would normally do. They'll have to just tick over on a spray. It's only a matter of keeping them hydrated, really. The unfortunate thing with this weekend is it sounds like it's going to be hot. That's just what we don't need when we're doing work outside. But, you know, do it in bits, take breaks, cold drinks, all that sort of stuff. Cold beer in my case, perhaps. So that's what's going on. So it's just not going to be many videos until we get out the other end of the weekend. But you've had a lot recently. You know, you've had your Phalaenopsis series, so there's been some stuff around. I mean, that was something quite new for me to do a series like that. And I really am hoping to do exactly the same thing with a couple of Oncidium or Oncidium intergeneric types that I will get next weekend at the sort of show that I'm going to. So that's we'll get that done. Going on out here, not much that's new. Continuing, but not new. The Kaniko's opened its second set of buds down here, facing the wrong way, unfortunately, but just continues to keep blooming, this one, and lots of new growth up the top. Very pleased with the progress of the plant itself, plus the fact it just keeps on blooming, so that's good. This monster up here, this is Dendrobium chryseum. I have to keep lowering this because the canes are just getting taller and taller. They're looking as though they might start to arch soon. They're starting to get, if I touch them, they're starting to border line coming downwards. Still haven't had that one bloom yet, even though it's a massive plant. This is last year's growth here. Maybe there'll be some blooms on that at some point, not so sure. We shall see. Hibici's still looking good. That'll be looking good for ages, I think. The blooms do last a very long time, so we're looking forward to that. Something I noticed yesterday when I was watering, the first of the true twinkles is starting to get some spikes. Now, where did I see them? Oh yeah, in the middle there. There's a little spike there showing. I'm sure there was more. Oh yeah, there's another one down on that new growth, sort of centre shot now, to the right of the pseudo bulb. So this twinkle is getting to the stage where it's producing its spikes. There's a lot of new growths on here, and because they're all at different stages, from like relatively young in the middle there to massive up the top there with the spikes starting, it's going to be in bloom over a very long period this time. I am starting to think that we've got the Bournemouth Orchid Society show at the end of September. What's that, 5 weeks time? And then the Wessex show is in October. it would be nice if I had something reasonable to put in, but not at the moment, you know, so we'll have to see how it goes. But anyway, we have a twinkle finally with some spikes. I don't count Sotoanum because although that's the parent of the one of the parents of the twinkles, it's not a twinkle, if you see what I mean. It's a genuine Oncidium species. So on the Facebook group there's a bit of confusion about Sweet Memory, Phalaenopsis Sweet Memory, and a name Leodoro, I think it is also bandied around, and sometimes you see Sweet Memory with Leodoro in quotes after it. I don't think they're all right. I think the true registered name is Sweet Memory, but there is a variety of names around, all relating to something incredibly similar, if not identical. But on the Facebook group, I think it was a brand new bloom. Mine does the same. When it's a brand new bloom just opened, this pale yellow around the edges is more green. It's a greeny yellow, and then it fades to a pale yellow. So it does change colour a little bit. And at the end of the day, this cross is easily reproduced, and probably, you know, I mean, if it's done from seed, you are going to get variety in the bloom. So they're not all going to be the same. So there would be some variety with the same name, if you see what I mean. This plant's doing something odd at the moment. It is at last growing a new leaf, but it's also doing this out the side, which I thought was another flower spike. But I've got a feeling it might be a new plant growing at the base. The one up the top's not too happy. Yeah. Still, it's growing, it's doing something, that'll do. And I wanted to show you this to prove that the bloom is actually opening, because by tomorrow it could be gone. This is my Epidendrum nocturnum, and it grows well for me, and it has attempted to bloom, but it self-pollinates just by looking at it. I think it just does it. I'm not even going to touch it. This is now going to be untouched and unmoved to see if I can get this bloom to hang in there. It's just literally opened overnight. It was a bud yesterday, and I've still yet to get a bloom on this to fully open. You know, the longest I've ever had a bloom last is 2 days, and it didn't fully open. It needed another day. Unfortunately, when it self-pollinates, it collapses within a few hours. So we shall see whether this one actually hangs in there. Now, this is the third oldest cane. This is the new one up here, the big one. So I'm wobbling the plant now, I must stop it. And then this is the one behind that, and then this is the one behind that. But the buds, or the spikes, actually extend. They look as though they've died, like this, and then they start to shoot out again and produce yet another bud. They just keep going. Now, unfortunately, I had an accident with this one and actually knocked the end of the spike off. So I'm not quite sure what that one's going to do. Having lost its sort of growing tip, it may branch out. I don't know, because I've never done that before. I don't tend to knock spikes off if I can help it. We all do it now and again, I know, but but anyway, the bud or the bloom is opening. The lip hasn't opened yet, it's still got a tunnel shape to it, but we shall see how that progresses. If it does fully open, that's a quick video I could do over the weekend. If I won't say when, I'm going to say if, because so far that has failed miserably to open a bloom fully. We shall see. I had several suggestions for this bulbophyllum, one of which looked incredibly close. It was the right size, it was the right basic colour and shape. The only thing that was different about that one was the deep red at the very top of each of the individual blooms was not a deep red. The petals, or whatever these things are, I don't know whether they're petals or sepals, but it looked incredibly close, but I wouldn't say it was an exact match, but it's the closest anybody's ever got so far. Somebody suggested Sycamensi. Well, I've actually got that one and managed to get that to bloom earlier this year for the first time ever after many years. So it's not that one. That one's got far more patterning and is slightly larger. Not much, but very slightly. So yeah. So yeah, just more of an announcement type video at the moment about what's not going on as opposed to what is going on as usual. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by, and I'll let you know how the gardening weekend goes. It's going to be quite hard work. There's lots of, I'll have to get saws out to do some of the pruning rather than just the little secateurs and tweak. There's some hacking needs doing. The hedge, as it's endearingly called, although we hardly ever mention it anymore, is in actual fact a forsythia. And that has grown 6 foot this year so far, so it's now twice the height of the hedge. So that's got to come right down. And hopefully there'll still be time for it to produce new growths before the end of the year, because that's what's going to bloom next year or early next spring. So hopefully we won't remove the blooming capacity of that one completely. But the hedge doesn't get fed anywhere near as much anymore, because my orchids that I throw away, not that happens very often, but there are some that just don't make it, they actually go in this green bin, and go off to make compost and things like that. And the old media and everything still goes under the hedge, but not the actual plants themselves anymore. So slight difference in what goes on. And when I watered the Mackay over there that's growing nicely, there's quite a few sheaths on growths in there, so we will have blooms down the line. And as a Cattleya type, they last a long time, so that's good. And these few little buds up here are pushing on. This is a very attractive Cattleya, nice miniature Cattleya, nice compact plant. And the growth that bloomed not that long ago is now pushing up its new growth. It's behaving in a normal fashion now, so it's become predictable. I've had it long enough to be predictable. Once the blooms go and the spike's taken off, the new growth starts either just before, as the blooms start to fade, or immediately after. So that's its pattern. And it's got 2 leads on it, so it's going to progress along those lines from now on. So that's good. And there's lots of sheaths going on up here in the Cattleya sort of stuff. There's many sheaths, so there's blooms to come on the Cattleyas. I don't believe there's going to be any blooms on the Purpurata. The latest 2 growths didn't grow as large as last year, and if it's going to bloom, it's going to produce a sheath at the same sort of time as the leaf matures, not later. It's not one of those. It produces sort of like this one up here, yeah? The leaf comes out of the top of the bulb with the sheath. They grow at the same time. And that's, as far as I know, how Purpurata progresses. So it's not going to bloom on those latest 2 growths. I'm still unsure why, but I'm still pretty confident that coming from the southern hemisphere, its genetics just still haven't adjusted. So it's maturing its new growths at the wrong time of year. So it's not triggering the blooms. It's a very highlight orchid, that Purpurata, but I've seen other people getting that to bloom alongside other Cattleyas, and I'm sure they haven't got any more light than me. So I think it's just still slightly out of season, and hopefully one day it will catch up again. So that's that. And yeah, that's about it. Just a short one today. And as I said, I've got a few things that have to be watered because they won't cope with the sprayer, and it's mainly these open basket cooler growers that shouldn't dry out at all. To really soak that moss properly, they need a lot of water, and it just doesn't work with the sprayer. It runs off before it can get in there. It needs a good soaking sort of thing, so I've got to do those today. My Ignea down there is looking a little dry. It's not dried out, but I can tell by the colour of the moss it's drying. And there's another one down the bottom there that's looking pretty dry as well. So those will have to be watered properly today. But apart from that, we're going to try and get away with the sprayer. And quite honestly, I'm not going to get back to normal until Tuesday. It's just going to be one of those weekends. So you may have to do without a Sunday morning chat this week. It just depends how things go. I may have time to do a Sunday morning chat video, but I don't know at the moment. It's an unknown. We'll have to see how the workload goes in the garden, and a lot of it will depend on what we do on Sunday, because Saturdays, a lot of Saturday will be taken up with travel, and doing food and things like that. I doubt if we'll get much work done on the Saturday. But Sunday will be the real workhorse day, because it's our full day, when we've got all day. So chances are the video will be the thing that gets missed. And I'll see you next time. Oh, and thanks for, everybody seems to have really enjoyed that Phalaenopsis series, and I'm pleased, because it was, I won't say it was a risk, but it was a bit of an experiment for me, because most people who follow the channel know that I don't have many Phalaenopsis, and the reason is I don't want the house full of plants, because it means I've got plants in different places. I like them all in here, yeah. But the Phalaenopsis don't do very well in here because it's too cold in the winter for them over prolonged periods. A little chill down now and again probably doesn't hurt them, but it's really cool in here throughout the winter. So it just stops them dead in their tracks. They just don't do very well out here. So anyway, we've got a few in the house now, and if I get the 2 Oncidium types, I'm thinking of getting 2. They won't be the same. They will have. I'll try and pick on 2 that need slightly different care, and yet they're not going to get it. They're still going to live in the house. I'm still going to find room for them on that table with the Phalaenopsis. The idea is to replicate people who can only grow in the home. Some people haven't got the luxury of an outside space, or can't grow outside because of weather conditions, and haven't got a greenhouse, live in apartments, all that sort of stuff. So we're trying to sort of bring some orchids along in that environment rather than what is a much more controlled environment out here. So we will start another series once I've got the plants, which is next weekend. So anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.